If you intend to speak during citizen comments, you need to sign a form in the back and bring it to the city secretary. All right, it's 7 p.m. We're going to call the meeting to order. City Secretary, is there a quorum present?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and first item B, invocation and pledge of allegiance by former City Councilmember Curtis Haverty.
God of all wisdom and mercy, we pause in gratitude for the gift of this community and the responsibility entrusted to those who serve it. Grant each council member clarity of mind, steadiness of purpose, and compassion for every neighbor. Guide their discussions toward what is just, their decisions toward what is good, and their actions toward what brings peace and prosperity. May humility guard their words, and may unity prevail over division. Amen. Let's face the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then next we have citizen comments. Citizens who have a signed card and wish to speak to City Council will be heard at this time. Compliance Tickets to Open Meetings Act. Unless the subject matter of the comment is on the agenda, the city staff and city council members are prevented from discussing the subject and may respond only with statements of factual information or existing policies. Citizens are limited to 5 minutes for their comments. First, Jim Fields.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be the first one here. Good evening, and thank you, allowing me for contributing to tonight's meeting. Jim Fields, 16413 St. Helier. First, I want to thank Councilmember Rossi, who came from her pew, went straight to me in an attempt to address the street near the Sam's and Park and Ride. And I really appreciate that because it's getting worse, and I thank you again for that. And also, I want to thank City Secretary Rutherford for correcting the minutes about the ownership in the Brewery on Senate. Thank you so much. Questions, Mayor, if I may ask. Are the proposed new scanners and tabulators the same as the county uses in the scanner the city owns?
Jim, ask your questions when your 5 minutes is up or reply.
What?
Finish talking, and when your 5 minutes is up, we'll respond.
Okay. Okay, well, the voters still have to pencil in their votes. Okay, is it true the golf course uses the ponds for irrigation for the golf course? That's what I was told, which is kind of strange because I remember a year or two back, I'm sure the water came from a well and there were talks of using gray water for irrigation. And I found it really hard to believe when these ponds were just dry as a bone 2 years ago. Infrastructure, I didn't get a chance to check it, but maybe it's already done. Street signs are missing at Sayal Slough and Steepleway Drive. Street sign missing at Pleasant Colony and Steepleway Drive. Missing bridge sign and no parking on side missing Castle Bridge. I hope the city has an inventory on these. All you do is just stick a barcode in the back of them, then have them run around and make sure they have all of them. It's good for safety. Street collection, Queen, I've already mentioned that one. Street markings need repainting. The center stripes are gone, particularly if you go down here Village Drive. Terrible. Lane dividers and zebra stripes are all missing. Looks like the stench at the sewer plant in the Philippine has improved unless the wind was blowing in a different direction. The large oak trees on the west side of Jones Road, they still need to be taken care of. Somebody's going to get hurt really bad. History. I have my own history here. Been here since 1990. Never in Jersey Village history has a single business ever been promoted by the city, and this is that brewery on Senate. Unbelievable. Never in Jersey Village history has the consumption of alcohol and gambling being promoted by the city. Just not right. The Baptists, if they were here today, would be screaming and yelling. Recommendation is the pool should be 25 yards, not 25 meters. In the United States, we're the only country in the world that uses yards. If we have to make these, if for the people in meters, if you make the other side of the pool 25 meters, you can have the races the other way in case somebody wants 25 meters. This was the issue with the old pool, was 25 meters. And the reason why you want to have the same yardage when you're doing your flip turns, and you'll miss them if the pool is a little bit longer or shorter. All right. This is also, city council members should always treat citizens with respect as they represent the citizens. Here's an example of unacceptable behavior to me. This has directed towards this guy. And I just posted this on Jersey Village News, Texas. The city manager has an interest in the brewery on Senate according to the minutes of December City Council meeting. That's all I said. Drew Watson's reply, Jim, are you using dry wit to point out the obvious typo in the minutes or attempting to spread an untrue statement? I don't understand that. Why didn't you say there's a mistake? And I said, okay. And he goes, here's a video from when you asked the city manager whether he owned an interest. The mayor said no, he does not. It was really weird. The mayor answered. I couldn't hear him answer. Those were the minutes are the official records of the meeting. And I said in reply, Drew wants in the future, you should read the minutes before approving them. Don't blame me. They are official record of the city council meeting. Therefore, you need to amend the minutes. And thanks to the city secretary. That's what she did. Below is a link to the minutes copy of my comments, and the minutes, personal attacks are not needed. And I'm continuing on from the other engagements out here I've had. And this is to be constructive for who that follow you. This had to do with farmers market. It was being terrible. And I investigated it, and here's how to start off. Dear Mr. Harris, does the city pay for the company to manage the farmers market? Also, would you like to know how much a spot costs to rent? Okay, Chica Harris had already gone, did not know that. I hope you're doing well. My name is Henry Chica. I'm the new Recreation Events Supervisor for the City of Jersey Village, Park and Recreation Department. And I'll try to summarize it. While the city is not directly involved in vendor pricing, we understand the market manager adjusts both rates based on demand and market activity for current pricing and availability. I recommend you reaching out directly to the market team. Gentlemen. And I said, I don't know if I got this right.
That's time, Jim.
Okay. How about the answers to the questions?
So, before going to Drew, City Secretary, the equipment that we're using, do you have any comments on that?
So there is an item on tonight's agenda for the ballot tabulator boxes for the election that still would require the voters to pencil in like a Scantron, and then when they are placed into the ballot tabulator, it will count the ballots. So it will eliminate our hand counting of the ballots.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I do have comments. You mentioned, I'm sorry, the oak trees on West, is that what you said? On Jones Road. Okay. Okay. And then right after that, or maybe it was before that, you mentioned something about a street. Is that the same one that we talked about last? Okay, so that one, we know that's county. Okay.
I have to get back to you on that one. I think they're still using the gray water, but I don't have that one off the top of my head. Michael Terzian.
As you answer the question, I would ask more about this voting machine. We already have a scanning machine. It's just like a county. And the accuracy of the voting is not going to be as good. That's a problem. And that's why we should use it.
Thank you, Jim.
Everybody in this room to use that machine. Thank you.
Michael Terzian.
Good evening, Mayor. Sorry, got new glasses. Got to hold it closer. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Michael Terigian. I live at 8325 at Gill Street. I'm here tonight to address the council's decision to fund the city campus through general fund using a phased approach after voters rejected this project. I want to start by acknowledging that you're not just our elected officials, you're our neighbors, and we share this community. I know you care about Jersey Village, and I believe you think this project serves our city's interest. But that's exactly why this situation is so troubling. How did we get here? The City Council originally planned to fund this project through certificates of obligation, a method requiring no voter approval. I gathered enough signatures to force a bond vote because I and many others believe a project of this magnitude deserved public input. And when it was presented to the voters, the community said no. Let me be clear about what's happening. City management is trying to make an end around, run around the voters by breaking the project into smaller pieces. What voters rejected wasn't the financing method, they rejected the project itself. This is the second time council has attempted to move forward without voter approval. First through certificates of obligation, now through a phased general fund spending. As your neighbors, we're asking, at what point will you accept the community has spoken? Also, the timing is problematic. 3 council seats are up for election in May, and 2 current members aren't running for re-election. That means this lame duck city council is making a multi-year financial commitment for a project voters rejected, a decision that will bind future councils and taxpayers. If this project can be funded through existing revenues, then the certificates of obligations were never necessary. And if it requires phasing because the money isn't readily available, then you're either depleting reserves or cutting other services, neither of which voters authorized. I know serving on this council means making difficult decisions, often without much recognition, but it also means respecting the democratic process, especially when that process was initiated by your neighbors gathering signatures. To the members that are not seeking re-election, I respect your years of service to this community, but your legacy shouldn't be overriding the voters in your final months. To the members on the May ballot, honestly, we'll remember whether you listen to us on this issue. I'm asking this council, as neighbors, as fellow community members, to halt this project and respect the outcome of the vote. If you believe the circumstances have changed, bring it back to the voters with a clear explanation. But please don't use procedural workarounds to override our decision. We forced a vote because we wanted accountability. We won that vote because the community agreed. Now we're asking you to honor both. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trigian. I've heard a couple mayors say this now. It is very difficult to assess why a vote passed or why a vote failed. And you don't know the intent of the voters. What we do know is voters did not have the appetite for bond approval for that amount for that project. That's really what we know. Why people voted that way, I'm sure many up here can say we've talked to a lot of different people and have a lot of different reasons they may have done so. But we can't say it's they didn't want the project or they did want the project. The only thing that vote says is that the voters would not accept a bond for that project at that time. I absolutely agree with that. But I don't think... Dennis Peterson.
Dennis Peterson, 16522 Cornwall. Thanks, Michael. That was a great lead into this. My comments relate to the JV City Campus project also. As an undeniable subject matter expert, yes, that's me, my opinion is that the proposed city campus is inefficient and wasteful of taxpayer funds, and the process has been less than forthright. Let me give you one example. A subcommittee was formed at the December workshop to look for opportunities for cost control. That's good. I would be allowed to provide input. That's great. So you can imagine my surprise and dismay when the architects brought back essentially an identical plan. I'd been punked. Draft notes from the December meeting were only revealed with today's council agenda. The last paragraph of those notes says, Council reconfirmed that they are committed to the layouts and concepts as presented, and they do not want to change yet. So the charge to the subcommittee was to save taxpayer money, but without changing anything. That's a little bit insincere and a total waste of time. I attended the workshop, and for the life of me, I don't remember that vote. The meeting was videotaped by citizens, so I have to review it and see how I missed out on that very critical piece of information. We really shouldn't be surprised. Let me remind you of this project's sequence from the start. August of 2024, then Mayor Bobby Warden posted a Facebook that said the sale of the property south of 290 would be more than enough to cover the property purchase and the renovations for City Hall. As it turns out, that wasn't even close. 2, an architect was hired to develop the schematic design. Let's call it the plan. The estimated cost was $24 million. 3, council voted to authorize $24 million of debt for this plan without voter approval through certificates of obligation. 4, the voters objected and successfully petitioned, with Michael's leadership, to overturn the CO decision. 5, numerous suggestions and alternatives and efficiencies were brought to the table. I know, because most of them were from me. Council decided to continue with the original plan anyway. 6, council voted for $21.5 million bond election. It failed. 7, council moves ahead with the original plan anyway. 8, more suggestions and recommendations to improve efficiency and reduce cost were made. None were considered. 9, a workshop was held where the council decided to proceed in 2 phases using the same plan, but this time bypassing the voters. It was to be funded out of monies coming from somewhere. 10, council members Lawson, McCray, and Martin also voted to waste several $100,000 more to complete the design of Phase 2. Tells me again, nothing will change with this plan. A subcommittee was formed to look for cost savings, but only using the same plan. An impossible assignment. The voters told you twice that the plan was too expensive, in my opinion, but tonight a vote is scheduled to move the same plan forward just in 2 phases. Gee, I'm starting to detect a pattern. Nothing will change the city's plans. You've made it perfectly clear you're okay with wasting millions of taxpayer dollars. But I do have a present for you tonight. I surrender. I've spent countless hours trying to bring efficiencies and cost savings for the citizens of JV. I failed. It proves the adage that you just can't fight City Hall. At my former architectural and engineering company, we had a name for these type of actions. We called it the bureaucratic boogie. You stall, you shift, you study, and you divert, but nothing ever changes. Let me close on a positive statement, though. There are rays of hope, and I'd like to thank Council Members Hughes and Rossi for trying to bring some sanity for our citizens. They just got shut down and outvoted. So please reconsider this overly costly plan and listen to the majority of your voters. Thank you.
Thank you. James and Kathy Sedbury.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
I'm Kathy Sedbury. This is my husband, James. We live at 28 Pebble Beach Court in Jersey Village. And we're here tonight just to kind of share a brief story about why we're so grateful to live in the city of Jersey Village. In late January, we had a gas stove that just suddenly stopped working. We knew that more than likely it was just a blockage in the piping that was going to that, but just to cross all of our T's and dot the I's, we called CenterPoint and asked them to come out and just check our gas pressure to make sure that there wasn't some other issue going on. CenterPoint came out and he checked around the house and then somehow came up with the idea that we must have a gas leak somewhere, and so he pulled our meter. And this was on Friday before the Saturday that the big freeze was hitting. So needless to say, we were in shock. He said that we had to have a plumber come and do all the repairs before they would come back out and put our meter back. So we were able to get a plumber. We had a plumber come out on Saturday. However, he could not do the work because he needed a permit from Jersey Village. And of course, it's Saturday and the offices were closed. So we felt like we hit a wall. However, I went to the Jersey Village website and I stumbled upon this emergency management little phrase in there somewhere, and I was trying to read along and not sure that our emergency qualified, but I went ahead and called, and Mark returned our call, it seemed like almost immediately, and we were kind of well on our way to see if we couldn't get our meter back. He called Mr. Blease. Mr. Blease gave us an emergency permit. We were able to then call and try to find around and get another plumber to come out and get our work done, and we were trying to get it all done before that evening because we knew we were on a fine line with getting CenterPoint back out. But I'm happy to say that with the help of the city manager and with the help of Mark and whoever else, Mark, that you called, that was able to get this done for us, we did get our gas meter put back on. They finished the work at about 10 o'clock that Saturday night, right before those temperatures, well, the temperatures already were plummeting, but right before it got critically cold. So we realized that this level of care and immediate attention simply would not happen anywhere else in Houston. And we are just so thankful that we live in Jersey Village and in a city that really cares for its neighbors and all of its inhabitants. So thank you again to everyone for jumping through hoops to help us get our power back, our gas.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming out. And it's Brian McCauley.
All right, good evening. I'll keep things pretty brief. My name is Brian McCauley, and like many of you, I live in Jersey Village. I live at 16401 Smith Street. I have been a resident of Jersey Village for 15 years now. Like many of you, I'm deeply concerned about keeping our taxes reasonable, ensuring every dollar is spent wisely, and making sure our city government stays accountable to the people. So because of that, I'm tonight excited to announce that I am running for City Council Place number 5, which I filed for today. Also have a lot of focus, too, on the city pool. I'd still like to see us figure out a way for us to draw down the debt on that as a community. But those are kind of the things I'm focused on. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kimberly Anal.
My name is Kimberly Nell, and I live at 15601 Singapore Lane. As my 53rd installment on Jersey Village's history are excerpts from the Houston Chronicle's March 2nd, 1981 article, Jersey Village Comes into Its Own, a Cow Town No Longer. The ice cream parlor has long been razed. The barns are gone, and asphalt and lawns now overlay the meadows. In all, there are a few reminders of the days when the town was a show farm and Rachel was the queen of its cows. Jersey Village, 30 minutes northwest of Houston on US 290, today is a semi-affluent bedroom community. The private lake, the golf course, the comfortable rows of two-story homes, the streets and sidewalks and parks and schools nestle close enough to Houston to be practical and far enough away to be desirable. About 40 years ago, this town cites 1,300 acres made up Clark and Bessie Henry's dairy called the F&M Jersey Ranch, and Sundays at least were far from quiet. On those days, crowds would flock from Houston to see a horse quaff F&M milk and turn down Borden's, watch cow milking machines, and consume sandwiches, malted milk, and ice cream. The dairy, purchased by Henry in 1938, was an innovation in its time. With modern equipment, a unique advertising campaign, a large herd, and Rachel, possibly the only cow to visit the Rice Hotel while still whole and alive. We built it as a showplace, said Mrs. Henry. We had other land with cows on it, but out here we had 125 registered jerseys. You have to know something about cows to understand that jerseys aren't like any other cow. They're the finest. They give more butter fat. Mrs. Henry said the jerseys were shipped to them from their birthplace on Jersey Island off the coast of Great Britain. Rachel was the best of them all. She had the finest disposition. She was the prettiest, and she gave a ton of butter fat in 1 year. For a sign, they wanted a life-size replica of a cow. The only suitable model for such a replica was Rachel. We took her right into the Rice Hotel and right up the elevator to Texas Neon Company, and they made a pattern around her, wrapped some kind of mesh around her until they got the shape right. It took a while, but she never caused any problem, no mess. She was that perfect cow. Henry sold his cattle and dairy machinery in 1948, returning to his retained land in the early 1950s, and with several others began planning Jersey Village. In 1956, faced with the threat of annexation by Houston, it incorporated by a vote of 58-0. Between 1970 and 1978, its population increased more than 500%. It now houses 4,200 residents. Today, the city is feeling some of the attendant pains of growth, ranging from an increased need for city personnel. There are currently 30 full-time employees, to Police Chief Fraser's repeated pleas for a real jail so he wouldn't have to handcuff prisoners to a converted bus bench. We'll probably have a charter in a year or so, said City Secretary Carol Fox. Then the city may annex some of the land to the south. Almost every lot in the town is sold now, either to developers or to individuals. That article was written 45 years ago. The house that Bessie lived in during the interview has been torn down due to repeated flooding, but a brand new home now stands there waiting to continue traditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. And now we move on to the city manager's report. Austin, please.
Mayor, councilors, happy to answer any questions you might have. The report is in front of you.
Well, I wanted to point out a couple of things. In the fire department report, I don't know if anyone caught this, but there was some fitting, and you might be able to help me with this. There was some work that needed to be done to one of the trucks.
The new tower truck?
So I guess the project was completed in-house for around $3,200.
So the engine is completed. That was around $3,200. We saved about $21,000 doing it in-house.
Right, that's what I wanted to highlight, so appreciate it. Thank you. There was a highlight of Officer Tevye in the police department, and I also wanted to share under the Public Works, if you go online. So let me go back a little bit. So January 30th, we had a water pressure issue. I think we all remember that. And if you go on the city website on the home page and scroll down a little bit, there's an update there as to what happened. And so if anyone was curious, it's there.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. We actually are going to consider these one at a time. E1, consider the approval of the minutes for the regular session and the special sessions, and a correction of the regular session meeting held December 15th. My first comment on this is that on the December 3rd, 2025 meeting, page 3 of the minutes, says Mayor Singleton, council should rule future bonds. That sentence doesn't make sense to me. I believe what I said is council should not rule out future bonds. So I'd offer that one correction unless anybody else has others.
I had one minor one, but I already mentioned it to Courtney.
Okay. We do not know what it is, so if you could...
Was it an S that needed to be added to the end?
Yeah, the December 15th minutes, she congratulated the officers that were awarded, and it says officer.
Wasn't a big deal.
That, now knowing it, sounds correct, but since it was different than what's presented, we need to know. So, I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve as adjusted.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. Consent agenda E2, consider resolution 2026-08, authorizing the submission of grant application to the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority, including a local match committee. Police Chief Danny Keel.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Jersey Village Police Department is requesting authorization to apply for the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Grant during the current budget. During the current funding cycle, the department previously received this grant in 2025 and is seeking to leverage it again to enhance our crime prevention and investigative capabilities. If awarded, the grant would allow us to purchase 2 mobile surveillance camera trailers and the Peregrine data analytics software. These tools would significantly strengthen our ability to address motor vehicle-related crimes, including vehicle theft, burglary of motor vehicle, catalytic converter theft, and other theft of vehicle parts. The camera trailers would provide flexible and deployable surveillance and identify crime hotspots, including parking lots, special events, business areas, and roadways where permanent cameras are not available. Each trailer has an estimated cost not to exceed $50,000. The Peregrine software, which has an estimated cost not to exceed $30,000, would allow the department to centralize and analyze data from multiple sources. The system supports crime trend analysis, mapping, data-driven decision-making, and helping both prevent crime and improve stolen property recovery. The total cost, the proposed cost for the equipment is $130,000. This grant does require a 20% local match, which would be $26,000, funded by the city. Per the grant requirements, the city would initially purchase the equipment, and upon confirmation of receipt of that, would be reimbursed $104,000. Tonight, we're requesting City Council's approval to be able to proceed with the grant application process, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Chief Keel, I had a question. In the January meeting, we had another grant application that the police department was submitting for the Peregrine software for $30,000. The total of the software is just $30,000. Is that correct?
The estimates that I've had so far is $30,000, and the first grant. So we're just trying to place our bets on 2 different odds.
Okay, and that was really my question, because and I guess it really depends when either of those grants, if they're awarded, when they come back, because obviously getting the Peregrine software under the January application, which is 100% without a city match, you're trying to just judge that and figure out what the best strategy is. Is that correct?
Yeah, one of them is a federal grant, so we may deal with the federal shutdown, HSI. It's an HSI grant, and there's some talks that some of those grant fundings will be shut down. And so we're looking at this. This is a state grant, which will still go through regardless. And that wouldn't be awarded. The MVPCA grant wouldn't be awarded till after October.
Till after October?
Until after October, correct.
Okay. And with respect to if the grant is awarded, just from my own knowledge, and the city has to come out of pocket the 26, is that within the police department's budget right now, or how is that handled? Is that coming from some other line item?
That $26,000 would be something that we would budget for next fiscal year. We would. I'm sorry, I misspoke a second ago, Councilman. The grant we would know if we were awarded it in July at the banquet for the MVPCA one, but all funds wouldn't be awarded until after October for the fiscal year.
Very good. Thank you for answering those questions.
Chief, with regard to the software, hopefully one of the grants is allowed or awarded rather. Is this a subscription type software, or is there a maintenance fee, and how does that work out?
It's an annual maintenance associated with it.
Is that a percentage of the $30,000 then, I guess?
It's $30,000 annually.
$30,000 annually. Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2026-08.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Moving on to the regular agenda, F1, discussion and consideration of ordinance number 26-5 to amend the budget for the fiscal year October 1, 2025 to September 30th, 2026. Jennifer Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. So this ordinance would be to appropriate funding to continue design work associated with the development of the city campus project. We have an estimate from the architect of $1.25 million, and given what we have paid to date since we began the architectural work and the funding that we already have budgeted, we need approximately $770,000 in additional funding to fully fund the estimated cost from the architects. We do have excess funds available in the in the general fund from fund balance from fiscal year 2025, and we would be able to transfer those funds over into the capital projects fund to support continued efforts related to the city campus project. And this is based on the phased approach that you all agreed to pursue last month. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Yeah, question on the expense to date. So this is a resolution with respect to an additional $770,000. What is the expense to date on the design of the city campus?
To date, on the architectural services, it's around $254,000 out of the $1.25 million. So we need around another $1 million total, but we have around $235,000 available in the budget from funds that are already budgeted.
And I just want to comment that this line item stems a little bit from the December 3rd workshop where we discussed having the bond voted down, how the city would proceed. One of the questions that came up in the discussions with the architect, and particularly with Mr. Peterson present, was the necessity of doing a full and complete schematic and design architectural for the two buildings, the Public Works Building and the City Administration Building, versus the remainder of the project. And according to the expert in the room, Mr. Peterson, it was not necessary to do the full scope of the designs, only the two buildings that were the focus. During that workshop session, there was a discussion among council, and 3 members of council wanted to proceed and purchase all of the plans, pay for all of the plans, and 2 of us preferred to delay that latter part. And in the interest of saving money, because it's not going to take years and years if the city is ever ready to proceed with the second phase for the architects to put together those plans. So for that reason, I'll be voting no on this particular agenda item.
There's no other comments. Does anyone have a motion?
This item, I remember that meeting as well. I'm not ready to move forward just yet on this item, so either, for me, either defer, but right now I'm a no as well, at least for now. Let's wait, give it some time.
Just out of curiosity, I guess what I don't understand is why you would look at a large project and instead of getting it all planned out and designed, you would decide to only do 2 portions of it in design instead of having a cohesive design project. Like, I don't understand the reasoning I understand the monetary reason, but I don't understand why you would want to design in pieces. I think that's how you end up with things that don't look like they belong together. I think that's how you end up with stuff that doesn't necessarily work well together. You end up with weird stuff. Plus, to me, I think the idea is if you get it all done, then people have something to look at, and people understand what the goal is, and they understand what where we're headed. I think some of that, personally, my opinion is, and we could discuss this ad nauseum, but a lot of times failure to have the actual vision and having a dollar amount attached to it is one of the reasons people don't have faith in projects. This is an idea, yes, it is an investment, but it gives people the complete and total idea, complete and total project, and then a way to actually get legitimate cost expectations from it. So that's my point of view on that.
Just to answer your question, I don't think there's anything about the design, designing two phases, assuming that's the way the city proceeds, in sequence, that's going to cause some great mismatch, as you allude. The fact of the matter is they already have the schematics. They can make the designs fit together. It's simply a matter of managing the city's funds. And for that reason, I'm not prepared to move forward with the full 770 for both phases. I think that there's so much on the table, as Mr. Peterson outlined, as Mr. Trillian outlined, in terms of we're responding to a situation with the bonds that were voted down. The city said, okay, in the workshop, how are we going to proceed? And I think it's incorrect for city council to just say, well, we're still going to do the whole city campus. We'll just take our time, and, I'm even of the mindset now that maybe this project does eventually need to go out for a bond, even this first phase, because I think we need to get the voters behind the renovation of the two buildings and get voter buy-in rather than just responding to the voters who rejected it. And Mayor Singleton, I think you're correct. They rejected the bond. We don't know for certain whether they rejected the entirety of the city campus or they like the city campus but they don't like the bond, because that wasn't the proposition. But for those reasons, I think that we need to slow down. We're also going to have as pointed out before, we're going to have a change in council makeup here within a couple of months, and I just think it's premature to barrel down the road. But circling all the way back to respond to your question, I feel very confident that delaying the second half would not result in some, clash in design or bad design. I think that the architects and engineers are certainly capable of dealing with that.
I mean, if it's a finance issue, part of my concern is that prices are just going to go up. The city finance director has already assured us that there's enough funds above the 90-day minimum that we have to maintain, and there will be plenty left over if we allocate these funds. So I just want to, I don't understand why, if the consensus generally is that we would proceed with the second part or phase two or other phases, additional phases, why we wouldn't get the design done now. And that's my only, I guess, that's why I voted for it in last December.
I'd also like to point out, because I heard it in citizen comments, just heard it there. Last I checked, by law, my term was 2 years, not 21 months. So I will be up here. I will be voting for my full 2 years. I will be voting as the citizens that have spoken to me see fit and how I judge. I am not going to sit up here and choose not to vote. I'm not going to sit up here and abstain from voting. I'm going to come up here and do my job that I was elected to do. I'm not going to listen to lame duck bullshit. Oh, yes, I know you're offended, Jim. It's okay, don't worry.
There was also some comments. There was some value in that December meeting that the overall civil was part of this and that it would be advantageous to get all of that drawn out. I definitely agree that having the final vision and being able to get the final cost has significant value.
I just don't know why this agenda item then couldn't be later down the road if we have enough in there for what needs to be done.
It's important to put the money aside before we take action. Like we agreed that we were going to do this in December, and so this is a follow-up to make sure that the money is there and set aside, and that we don't, every dollar has a job. Because there's actually no slush fund.
Just to follow through with that, Councilmember Rossi, what comes in the next time? What changes with time? If there was something to say, this gets punted, tabled, whatever the right word is, till next month, what changes between now and then?
No, I'm not talking about next month, but I'm just saying that this is still a lot of money, and depending on who's sitting up here in the next few months, I don't feel comfortable spending that much money, or at least moving that much money to spend. At least that's my thinking. That was part of my thinking. But I still go back, even if we're going to if we can phase the project, we can phase the financing to it. I don't think there's anything wrong with the arguments that you or Councilmember McCray are making. That's just my general opinion.
I guess I think the fact is, if future council wants to change that, they have every right to change that. That's how this works. But I don't think it's our jobs to choose not to make decisions based on what ifs or ideas of the future. When you're looking at people up here, the decision. This is what they're asking us to make a decision on this, and I think we owe it to at least city staff. We said, this is what we stated during the December 3rd meeting. They're asking for a formal commitment to that.
With that, I move to approve Resolution 2026-09.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those against? The mayor votes in favor. Motion passes. Moving on to F2, discussion and consideration for ordinance 2026-6.
Mr. Mayor, just to correct, it was ordinance, not resolution, ordinance 2026-5.
Correct. If I said wrong?
No, I said it wrong.
No problem. So we just approved ordinance number 2026-5. Now we're moving to F2, discussion and consideration of ordinance 2026-6, amending the general fund budget for fiscal year October 1, 2025, and ending September 30th, 2026, not to exceed $10,000. Courtney Rutherford.
So this comes as the county is not contracting with the city this year, which we know in the past they haven't contracted in even years due to the primaries. And I have been made aware by council members that there has been some issues with the paper ballots and hand counting in the past. And there are going to be changes coming with Senate Bill 2753 that the Secretary of State just is still working on and trying to figure out how to implement those changes, so they're not in effect for this election. But some of those changes will be that we'll be eliminating the gap between early voting and election day. So early voting will start a few days later and run all the way through election day. So if we continue to do the hand count, we can still have separate boxes for early voting and election day, and we can start counting the early votes on election day. If we go to the tabulation machines, which I am requesting, then everything stays in the one ballot box and is all counted on election night when the voting closes. And it is a much faster process because the machines are actually calculating as the ballots are distributed. And so when we close our elections and our last voter votes, then we're able to run reports from the machine to have faster results, hopefully more trust from the community that the ballots are being counted properly. So we don't know with all the changes what the county is going to do. We don't know if we're going to be forced to move to November. I know a lot of cities that I talked to in my city secretary group, they are struggling with how to do their elections. So I think it's wise for us right now. It's not going to cost us a lot of extra money to move forward with the for our residents and just for I think a better, more efficient process.
Courtney, with respect to election integrity, you mentioned that the ballots are basically like fill in the bubble.
Yeah, like a Scantron.
Okay, and so as compared to the paper ballots, which under the current system they start counting on election day, the early ballots, and they're counting through the day, and that's part of the problem. We even had a proposed charter amendment to delay the counting until the polls had closed, but that didn't make it into the proposed charter amendments. But anyway, under this system now, the actual counting with the Scantron, would that not begin, and I understand it's electronically, so it's much quicker, but it wouldn't begin until the polls close, is that correct?
Correct. The machine is keeping the data, but we will not be able to access the data until we close the polls on Election Day.
Perfect. Thank you.
Welcome.
Can I ask? So these machines also, are they calibrated? Is there certification with them or any of that?
Yes. So we're going to have a special computer that we will purchase with it, and then ES&S will every year work with us in the maintenance to calibrate our machines and make sure everything's working properly each year.
Like the county machines are calibrated as well?
Yes.
Okay. And, you mentioned purchase. So if we purchase, I feel like I remember this conversation a couple years ago. We're going to be able to use this in future elections?
Yes. We would use this every year moving forward.
And then it would be calibrated every year and so on and so forth?
Yes. You're required by law to calibrate and run tests on the machines every year prior to the election.
And if anyone, not that anyone cares, but MUDs do the same thing with their elections as well. So
yeah.
I just wanted to clarify this point. This means less hands touching ballots.
Exactly. Less
and
people.
That's significantly more secure.
Yes. And we would not need as many election workers either. And also, just on election day, the election workers get here probably around 6 a.m. So if we're hand counting, we can be here till 2 or 3 in the morning. And that is a very long day for our workers.
How much are they paid per hour?
I think our thing is $17 an hour for our election workers.
Yeah, to me, it's not the expense of the election worker as much as it is just the strain, right? Being able to think clearly at 3 a.m. But yeah, I think that so it's just one count, I guess, through the ballots or as their input, or would the process, I guess, I'm asking about on the election.
Right. So basically, you're going to come in, you're going to color in with your Scantron, and then you feed it into the tabulation machine, and it is reading it as you're scanning it in.
So we wouldn't run those through again to recount or anything like that? Okay.
No, we will run a report at the close of elections on Election Day.
But with the Scantron, we could do a recount if necessary, or a manual
recount, to do a recount,
or whatever.
Yes.
And we have physical proof of the ballot.
Yes.
Okay.
Move to pass ordinance number 2026-6, amending the general fund with $10,000 for this election expense.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Moving on to item F3, discussion and consideration for ordinance 2026-7, amending the budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2025, ending September 30th, 2026, in the general fund, the amount of $3.8 million in revenue and around $172,000 expenditures. Finance Director Jennifer Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. In December, the city closed on the sale of the 2 tracts of property located at Jones Road and US 290. We received total proceeds of $3,844,605. We also incurred closing costs of $172,150, which were not budgeted, and so asking this evening for you to approve ordinance number 2026-7. Thank you, Drew. Got me saying resolution now. That would appropriate the funding for these expenses, and that way we would not be showing that we're going over budget in the department that houses these expenses.
Jennifer, in the on the page 175 of the packet with the budget amendment request form, I took accounting 1 and 2 in college and never touched it since. The sale of assets are negative. That's because they're credits, and so they're actually, it's the opposite effect.
Yeah, our system recognizes revenues as a negative or credit balance, and so it's entered on this worksheet reflective as the way the system shows it. But when I present the reports to you all, I make them all positive. But if you look at the in-code reports, it will show them as negative numbers.
Okay, thank you.
A quick question with respect to these sale proceeds. I know we discussed it, I believe, the last meeting or the meeting before, proceeds from the sale of the Public Works building. Austin, where are we with respect to the remaining property on the south side of 290? Or is there just one more track or 1 or 2 more tracks, and what's the ballpark value?
We have 1 tract still for sale that is actively being marketed. I know they've had a little bit of interest, but they're kind of waiting for the other 2 properties to break ground because that will make it more attractive to potential buyers.
And any idea, kind of ballpark, based on an average dollar a square foot, what that tract we might be looking to realize from it?
Yes, we do. I would rather not tip our hand to negotiations in a public meeting, though. So I'm happy to chat about those numbers not in a public meeting.
Very good. Thank you.
And Austin, you're careful there. It's 1 parcel that we're listing for sale. We have another parcel we're holding back. And
right, so there's 1 parcel, the hard corner at Jones and 290, that's 1 for sale. We are keeping the roughly 3 acres of land on the south side of the bayou on Jones Road. Lovett Industrial is going to be expanding the retention pond that is already abutting that, and we're keeping the remaining 2 acres for a potential future water plant.
One other question for Jennifer with respect to the sale proceeds in this budget amendment with respect to the current fiscal year budget. With these proceeds, how does that, where is the city above the 3-month or 5-month reserve? What's the
Yes.
balance sheet look like, so to speak?
So I actually just checked as you all were discussing the previous budget amendment from the general fund. We were approximately $10 million over our required fund balance as of the end of January.
In excess of the
yes.
Required reserve?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, obviously we have expenditures budgeted throughout the year. This is property tax season. We're getting a lot of revenue in right now. But as of the end of January, we're approximately $10 million over the policy.
We have a motion?
Move to approve ordinance 2026-7, amending the budget.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Moving on to F4, discussion and consideration of ordinance 2026-8, amending the budget for the fiscal year 2025-2026 in the amount of $206,652 in the Crime Control Prevention District Fund. Jennifer Brown, Finance Director.
Thank you, Mayor. And if I can correct my last statement, we have a fund balance of $10 million, which is $6 million over the policy requirement. So I'm sorry.
Thank you for making that clear.
misremembered. Okay, so the next agenda item is at the end of last fiscal year, the Crime Control Prevention District and you all approved a budget amendment for replacing the HVAC system at the police department. We were not able to get that completed prior to year end due to supply chain issues. It has now been completed, and the Crime Control District is currently running over budget because those funds are not budgeted in the current year. They did fall to the bottom line. They are available in the district's fund balance, and so I'm just asking to reappropriate those funds in the current fiscal year. And it's $206,652.
This sounds to me more of like a housekeeping situation, not.
Yes.
We don't need to, I don't think we need to rehash out this.
Yeah, it's already done. The money's already spent. I'm just reestablishing. the
Yeah,
budget in
that's
the
what I'm
current
saying, like, this
Yes.
seems like a no-brainer.
But to be clear, it was only spent once. It wasn't spent in the last budget. It was budgeted for and now spent now.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2026-8.
Second that motion.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Moving on to item F5, discussion and consideration of resolution 2026-10, receiving the P&Z Commission's final recommendation concerning the application from the Ambrose Group. Rick Faircloth. Yeah, if you don't mind, Rick, come up to the mic. For some background, this is a replatting of the 3 office buildings at Village and Jones are located at 8220 Jones Road. They seek to separate the 3 plots, correct?
That's correct. Commission met earlier tonight on this replat. The property owner and the surveying firm were there and gave us a lot of details about how it's going to be structured. They're not changing any buildings. They're just going to be called things different. Going to be called business condominiums, and they'll have a Unit 1, Unit 2, or A, B, and C, and so forth. But it was unanimous voting, and as our report says, our preliminary reports to proceed and to council.
Thank you. As Rick stated, the vote was unanimous, and this item is to receive the report from P&Z.
I just wanted to request if we could make a note to correct the spelling. It's replant is written in background information instead of replat. Yeah, under it says, just as background information, staff received an application for a replant. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2026-10 to receive the Planet P&Z Commission's final recommendation.
I'll second that, please.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Moving on to F6, discussion and consideration of Resolution 2026-11, approving the final plat at 8220 Jones Road. Community Development Manager Maisha Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So, same thing. This is just to officially do the resolution for it.
Same thing. We're going to replat the property because the property owners have asked for it, but this is going to allow them to increase the value of the property and make it more attractive to buyers. Instead of purchasing the entire property, they're going to be able to do a little adjustment and make it more valuable into a larger market. Any questions for Maisha or a motion to approve?
I move to approve Resolution 2026-11 for the replat.
I'll second.
A motion is second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Moving on to item F7, discussion and consideration of Resolution 2026-7, approving the selection of the preferred design concept for the municipal swimming pool at Clark Henry Park. City Manager Austin Blease.
Mayor and Councilors, following the approval in November with the bond, we've engaged a design engineer for the new pool. We held a public meeting. Public feedback showed clear support for Concept 3 as the preferred pool layout. Concept 3 received the highest level of support, but we did have a lot of comments that people would like to see two separate bodies of water. Right now, the opinion and probable cost for Concept 3 is $4.8 million. That estimate includes the pool heater, dive well, slides, and associated features. In addition to the construction costs, we have total costs. So all in, we're looking at right now $5,753,425, which is well within the voter-approved amount. As the design advances, we have two things that we need council to decide tonight. One is whether or not to proceed with a single body of water or two separate bodies of water. The configuration supports practices, lessons, organized events, while continuing recreational access in one pool if we must close to an emergency of something happening in the pool. Estimated additional cost for the two separate bodies of water is $300,000. The other piece to note is the dive well and the heater. So with the dive well, the pool would hold approximately 335,000 gallons. Heating the pool from March through October would cost roughly $31,500. There are swim teams in the area that rent out community pools year-round and pay for the heating bill so they can swim throughout the year. If we have a heater, we could certainly look to attract those uses as well. If it was two separate bodies of water, you could heat only the swim lanes to save money on the heating expenses. Another topic is the dive well. Dive well requires greater water depth and increases cost construction by about $200,000, along with additional operating considerations. If we have a dive well, the lifeguards need to be certified in deep water rescue, which can affect staffing and training requirements. Without the dive well, the maximum pool depth would be approximately 7 feet, reducing the requirements, limiting the volume of water that would be needed to be heated. Public feedback reflected mixed views on the inclusion of a diving board. A dive well is shown on both concepts, but council could choose to remove it if you want to. So council's direction on these two staff items is what we need here for tonight. And then from here, we will continue on throughout the design and construction drawings, and we'll be expecting to put this out to bid this spring. Just a point of clarification, I know there was a question earlier. This is a yards pool, not a meters pool. So just want to make sure that's clear out there.
And you're proposing, or at least this agenda item proposes eliminating a high dive, basically, so you don't have to have the diving well, decrease the construction cost, but you still have a low board, right?
No, there would be no diving board if you have no dive well.
Not at all.
You would have diving blocks for swim team, like for that, but those don't count as like diving boards.
And then with respect to the notion of potentially heating the pool, whether it's one pool or two pools, heating it, and the potential for use by local swim teams, has anybody, and I know nothing about this, I know, Jennifer, you would know more with respect to whether we have to have lifeguards when they have swim meets, the cost of, I mean, I would be saying, do you want to put a $300,000 cost for putting a heater system in if, you know, it's only a half a dozen weekends and the revenue generated from those teams holding swim meets is, you know, $2,500 a weekend or whatever. So that's my question. Has anybody sort of looked at the cost benefit of making it so we can heat the pool and we can accommodate swim teams, and whether there's actually the demand and it would be used and paid off? So
just to clarify, $300,000 is the cost to separate the two bodies of water. The heater is actually already included in the base cost of the $5.7 million. We do have lifeguards at swim meet in Jersey Village, and that's paid for by the swim team. There's more opportunity to use the pool, not just for swim teams, but if we wanted to open up during spring break or fall break or something like that, we could open up the pool and have the warmer water there. But the year-round swimming is that's not a recreational league like the JV the JV Stars is just the summer rec type of league. I don't believe that they would be in a position to pay super large sums of money. I think part of that is just a community service that the city has historically offered. Council can always change that in the future. But to answer it, for the heating of it, heating it in April and May is not going to cost a lot of money. It's when you get to the further, like March or October, is when the bulk of that heating cost would come. And the JV Star Swim team, I believe they start mid-April-ish.
I know Drew's family Drew has a year-round swimmer. or two in his family. He might be able to talk about the teams that look for that year-round swimming opportunity.
There are a lot of USA swim clubs, and there are some very large ones that have their own pool. There are a lot of ones that rent through school districts, and sometimes that gets, or they're growing, right? And there's a limited number of pools available. So I think those are the types of opportunities that would be available. I think there's also, as far as with respect to swim teams, they're, like as Austin said, I think a heater could pay off in a long time, because you could do winter parties. Why should the summer kids have all the fun for birthday parties? But that's an aside. I think the operational cost is, but if we can get someone that to be accounted for in various rentals, I think that goes for itself.
I know I've heard there's a lot of competition in renting pools, and I think the intent behind the heater, I don't believe it was for necessarily October, December, where the cost is really high. It was to extend out the season. And one of the nice benefits is, while rental may not pay for the whole thing to be heated, you are extending the community use of the pool immensely. And so there's a massive add back. The pool will never pay for itself, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I have to say, I do like the idea of two separate pools from a usage standpoint, being able to use, if something is wrong with one, you still have another option, and if something happens and comes up with one, you still have another option. We visited numerous community pools this summer and noticed they're seeing multiple ones that have that separation, and I do think that's a much cleaner option.
Yeah, it seems to be a growing... I will call it a best practice. I don't know if pool designers will call it a best practice, but it seems to be what's in vogue now, for the most part.
I think the pool designers advocated for this, the two pool design. Is that correct?
They're agnostic. They want whatever the community wants, but we had a lot of feedback from people, verbally here at the meeting and some online as well, about two separate bodies of water.
Say that again?
Right. We got a lot of feedback from residents that came to the meeting and stuff, saying that they would prefer the two bodies of water.
Okay, because we talked about vote, and you don't always have intent, but when we had this, and there was 98 votes for the one body of water with a strait that connects the two, but also 8 lanes. So I don't know if it was people were going for the wider big pool, and it just happened to be the one connected, or...
That was a lot of the feedback, as people said they liked the 8 lanes, but they also, then that's why they voted for that one, because I thought the 8 lanes would be the most important, but they also voiced support for a separate body of water, or the two separate bodies of water.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense then.
When you say I want to make sure I understand you. When you say two separate bodies of water, you're not talking about concept one, which was literally 2 pools.
Yeah, they're talking about doing 2 pools. Because then if you have an accident in one, the other one is still available for use. Because if not, if there's an accident, the entire pool gets shut down for cleanup purposes.
Like what kind of accident are you
Fecal accident, which happens frequently at a pool.
You made her say that.
I'm more than happy to say it.
Was there, the survey, was there not a lot of interest, or did people really care whether there's a diving board or not? Is that...
There was mixed reviews on that, with having one or not.
I will say this, I talked to a neighbor of mine who has grandchildren, and because I was wondering, it was literally mixed reviews on it. And she said that the line to use the diving board was always really long, and the kids loved the diving board.
I will also comment, Jersey Village having a diving board has kind of been iconic to Jersey Village. There are not a lot of pools with a diving board, and we were definitely known for having one, and there's always a line when it's open.
It's like Tower Oaks is known for having a high dive still. I don't understand how or why, but you can go jump off a 15-foot diving board at Tower Oaks. I don't recommend it, but you can. Yeah, I know Tower
You mean
Oaks.
the
but
3-meter or the 10-meter platform?
They have a platform. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, I know TC Jester used to. I'm digressing.
I'm talking 2 years ago. This was open. So now I will also say this: Town Lake, it does have a diving board. Not like what we had. It wasn't. I won't call it necessarily like a true springboard, but they do have a diving board in Town Lake. For what it's worth.
You pay for it, though.
Oh, I didn't say you didn't. I was just letting you. You're talking about places that have a diving board. That would be the only one I have seen in a long time is for like a community-owned. I'm not going to say city-owned. That's different, but community-owned.
So, looking at feedback, though, it was concept, was it 3? That was not the 2 separate pools that had more votes. Just pointing that out. And then when looking at long-term maintenance, pumping, all the things cost-wise, is there a difference between having the 2 separate pools, maintenance, versus like long-term costs? I mean, I don't know. With having one pool, I see that if there's an event and we have to close one pool down, it's nice because then the other pool can stay open. But as far as just in general, annual cost, fees, those kind of things, I don't know if that is a question for...
I mean, so you got the extra cost up front for the building, right, and the pumps and everything, so you have 2 pumps, those types of things. From a chemical standpoint, I could be wrong, Robert might know a little bit more, but I think from a chemical standpoint, you're probably going to be about the same because the amount of water you're treating is still the same. But I don't know if Robert has anything to add.
You hit it on the head. It's, for chemicals, it's the amount of gallonage, really, and the amount of water. But you should have 2 bulkheads and 2 pumps. But the chemicals, you shouldn't see too much of a difference.
Well, just from the standpoint of saving money, and while I understand the notion that if there's an accident in the pool, you have to shut the whole pool down, but I don't know how frequently that happens. My thought is there's $300,000 you can save by keeping it one pool. There's $200,000 you can save by not having a diving board. If that's not a high priority, that's $500,000 saved, and I would be inclined to go that way. You still have the water features, you've got the beach entry, you've got the other aspects of the pool. I don't recall if they are they going to reuse that rock climbing wall?
If there's no dive wall, we couldn't reuse the rock climbing wall?
No, I'm just asking, like, does the city intend to reuse that rock climbing wall?
If we have a dive wall, I think we would, as long as it's still in good shape. But if we don't have a dive wall, then we can't.
Okay, so bottom line from my perspective, if we can save $500,000 by not having the diving well and by having 2 separate bodies of water, I think that's a good savings.
And I think having one pool is a little short-sighted, personally. I think the 2 pools is a better way to go. I've felt that way from the very, very beginning. I wasn't a fan of the Z-shape, of the original pool. But, again...
Yeah, I prefer the 2 pools. I know the diving board is popular. If I had to choose one or the other, I'd choose the 2 pools over the diving board, which probably makes me one of the more unpopular people in the room at this time. But diving board, one way or the other. I think the 2, there's not just heating it, but also the aforementioned accident mitigation.
Here's one question I have. If we have, because there was some mention of having special certifications for lifeguards, when there is a dive well, if, let's say, the pool opened in March or in April, that's sort of considered off-season, right? Would there be issues getting lifeguards for that time period?
since we don't have any lifeguards right now, I guess I can't speak to the availability of hiring them in the future. But a lot of our lifeguards that are like high school students would likely be available, and obviously, if we open, would be dependent upon lifeguard availability. So I don't want to promise right now that we would open for various weekends at any time given the year, because that could change weekend to weekend based on lifeguard availability.
Austin.
No, I was just going to add that we would try to staff it as much as we could, assuming council appropriated the budget for that and everything as well, because there is a cost for staffing and everything, but I can't guarantee that we could.
Austin, the expense laid out on page 197 at $5,753,000, are you saying that does not include the additional $300,000 for 2 bodies of water and the additional $200,000 for diving well?
The dive well is included in that number. The 2 bodies of water is not.
Okay, so we're looking at not $5,753,000, but $6,053,000, correct?
If you separate the 2 bodies of water, correct, you have to add 300,000 to that number.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, these numbers are provided by the designer, their estimates based on their best guess and their assessment of current. But just as a reminder, and I think you know this, Austin, this would go out for bid after the design is finalized, and then we'd go with the best.
Right, absolutely. This has to go for public bids, so it's going to be out there for public to bid on. So anybody that has in the past said they know a person that can build it cheaper, we would invite them to bid on it as well. So yes, these are an opinion of probable costs right now that we have based on the design team and what they've seen in the past.
Well, I understand the whole 2-pool process. For me, since concept 3, which is sort of that, like you mentioned, it was like a straight, I'm leaning towards concept 3 because that's what a majority of people are saying they want.
Connie, they're 3A and 3B, aren't they, on the drawings?
Am I looking at the wrong thing?
It's the 1 body of water versus the 2, I think on the drawings are 3A and 3B.
Yeah, so in the packet, page 198 and 189, we've got the 3A has the 1 body of water, which is kind of what people said they liked. But the verbal feedback we got from a lot of people is they voted for this one because it had 8 lanes, but they would prefer to see 2 separate bodies of water, 2 pools, which is why we brought it here tonight for council.
It was a little it was confusing on the survey because if you chose the 2, it only showed the 6. If you wanted the 8, you had to choose the 1. And then so people started sending in verbal or other feedback saying, I wanted this, but this is how I wanted it. My option wasn't available.
Austin, so I'm clear of this resolution. It's 3A or 3B, and are they both with or without a dive board, or is it 3B with a dive board or 3A single?
No, you can choose either way.
Okay, that's what I thought was from them.
Yeah, 3A or 3B and with or without.
Make sure, thank you.
Can I get clarification that 3B is the 2-pool option? Or am I looking at it backwards?
Yes, that.
So 3B is the 2-pool option.
And it's also, just so that everybody's clear, it's in the resolution, it's 3B, 2 separate bodies of water.
Hold on, let me find that real quick. So for 3B, I'm looking for the cost, probable cost, excuse me.
So 3B, the probable cost would be roughly $6.1 million. 5.8, right, roughly.
Did they give any indication of the difference between 8 and 6 lanes? I mean, the width of 2 extra lanes times 25 yards is, I don't know how many square feet.
From a cost perspective, I know we talked about that back in December, but I don't remember what those numbers were.
Going with 8 lanes was better, even to be able to cordon off 2 lanes for lap swimming, and kids could use the other 6 lanes, so. Well, notwithstanding the discussion, my inclination would be to go with concept 3A, which is a single body of water without the diving board. We've got other amenities, and I think that's sufficient. And it'll save the city some money.
And I would go 3B with a diving well, but could also understand 3B without. I would say 3B with or without, but I mean, and I think I agree with Councilman Lawson that I think the 2 separate pools is more important than the dive well, which won't make me popular at home, but yeah.
Now I'm really going to throw a pin in this one. So I'm inclined to do 3A, which is the one pool concept, but the diving board would be included in my thinking, my vote.
Yeah.
So, because I was saying, for me, I would say 3B, but I could go either way with the diving well. So I guess that's.
It would be great to have the option of diving board or not, but diving well is kind of a permanent feature in the pool, and that's kind of a big deal.
You could always choose not to do a board.
Right. No, like I said, I'm favoring the two or the 2 pool concept. I'm also of the mind that 84 people also who wanted the 8 lanes, also 98 people said 8 lanes concept, and also 84 people said diving board, and then throughout the continual comments, that's what there is. I'm also of mind that currently the projection is that this is under budget, even with that, by $500,000, which is still significant. I don't want to spend money just because we can, but if this is a 50-year concept, then I'd like to make the most of it as soon as we can.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2026-7, Concept 3B, 2 separate bodies of water with a dive well.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those against? Okay. I figured that's where that was going. I'm very solidly in the 3B camp. Absolutely. I definitely respect the nostalgia of the dive board. I don't think that is a cost that I would look at and say, I'm not going to do this because it's too much money. I would vote in favor, 3B with a dive board. I want to nod back to what JB's known for. So, motion passes. We're moving to, I changed my agenda. Moving to item F8, discussion and consideration of resolution 2026-09, ratifying the phasing approach for the city campus project and authorizing staff to proceed with the design consistent with that phasing. City Manager Austin Blees.
Mayor and councilors, on December 3rd, council provided the direction to staff on the city campus project. Council earlier tonight passed the ordinance for the budget amendment for that as well. The subcommittee that council set met on February 2nd to review the proposed adjustments and to discuss opportunities for cost control. The subcommittee also discussed potential scope adjustments for Phase 2. Following discussion, the subcommittee reached the agreement that including the lobby in Phase 1 represents the preferred phasing approach. The lobby was originally going to be part of Phase 2, but adding that to Phase 1 allows for the construction to happen in a more thought-out manner. So when we get to Phase 2, we're not having to redo any of the work again. So the current construction estimate for Phase 1, just the construction estimate, $7.979 million. That includes the city administration building, the public works building, and the lobby with a 10% contingency, 8% furniture, fixtures, equipment allowance. Total cost estimate is about $9.4 million. Design costs are not included in this amount because those were addressed under a separate agenda item earlier tonight. So staff recommends council adopt a resolution ratifying the inclusion of the lobby in Phase 1 of the city campus, reaffirming the council direction, and confirming that construction will continue to occur in phases.
Any questions or comments?
And again, I'm going to reiterate a little of what was discussed by some of the residents during the public comments. We talked at the December 3rd work session about focusing on the two buildings, and when we focused on the two buildings, we focused on the fact that those two together had a cost of, I believe, $4.2 or $4.3 million. Also, during that December 3rd work session, there were a lot of public comments about the need for community spaces, and that's a big concern with the JVSO and the Boy Scouts or the Scouts, the desire to have community spaces. Following that December 3rd meeting and during the work session, it came up that in order to not modify Building A, you would need to add a lobby, and in order to add that lobby, which, by the way, I just realized is 1,500 square feet, you would need to demo the building that JVSO is in as well as the pastor building. And so essentially one of the problems here is that while the city complex or city campus as a proposition, one of the things that the public wanted was community spaces, we would in fact be demolishing those spaces that the community is using, and there would be nothing. I would think that the city council needs to take that into consideration and say what can be done, for example, with the some slight improvement to the existing building where the gym is, so that those community groups would have space. Otherwise, we're essentially saying, okay, well, all you community groups that are using the space, great that you want a city campus, but now you're not going to have anywhere to meet for whatever the term of the construction is, 8 to 12 months. We've already discussed about the desire to design the entire project versus just the two buildings, the Public Works and the city administration, and I think we should limit the design to that. I'm still not sure how we go from a cost of $4.2 million for those two buildings renovation to a cost with soft costs now that's close to $10 million. Basically, let's see. One of my concerns here is while we do have some money in the budget, I think that if we just barrel down the road and say, okay, we're going with Phase 1, we're going to do all of these things at a cost of $10 million, we've not really planned it out, and I realize we're still in the design and planning phase, so it hasn't been put out for construction, but I'm just in light of the fact that we don't know whether voters defeated the bond because they just didn't want to borrow $21 million, or they defeated the bond because they just don't want to spend all this money on city campus. And so my inclination, as I said before, is that perhaps as this moves forward, I would be inclined to, before it goes out for bid, letting the voters decide whether they want to move forward with this, to get voter buy-in. And that's really what we need. We all know we need a new city hall. We all know now that we need a new public works, since we sold the public works building, and we only have a right to lease that property back for a time certain. But I think that in light of the defeat of the November of 2025 bond, it's necessary to get community buy-in on this. So for that reason, I can't just say, yeah, just let's barrel down the road towards design and construction without giving thought to that. And I think, Mayor Singleton, you had mentioned even in the correction of the minutes that you had said not to rule out the possibility of a bond. So those are my comments on this issue.
City Secretary, we have passed the deadline for calling the May election, correct?
I believe the deadline is this week, but we've missed it because we have the 3 business day requirement now for posting.
So it would be November 4th is the next opportunity.
Yes, that would be your next opportunity.
There's like a city campus subcommittee. I don't remember what the title was or whatever. When did they meet?
That was for the City Hall Building A, and we just met last week.
Yep, we met on Monday the 2nd, a week ago, and basically what happened is the architects came in and said, we've modified the plans for Building A. They put a few more cubicles in, and then they added in a lobby and added in a public restroom. There was no dialogue or effort to make the spaces smaller, more efficient, talk about economies of, could we get, other offices in there, et cetera. Essentially, the design was identical, and there was not an opportunity to discuss how could we change this. It wasn't the lead architect on it. What was the name of the gentleman who was there?
Jose was the architect that was there, and along with the other 2.
Yeah. So, I mean, the gentleman who was there was, I'll do whatever you want to do, but quite frankly, as one of the committee members, I felt like we were basically told, okay, we've added a few cubicles, we need lobby space, we need a public restroom for people who come into the lobby, and are y'all good with that? And so, quite frankly, and I apologize, but I think it was a huge waste of Mr. Peterson's valuable time, and I was very frustrated with the process. I'll say that.
So there was significant conversation during the meeting. A lot of suggestions or comments revolved around moving other parts of the project into this building, namely the EOC. The most discussion about this building revolves around the staff restroom, which I think was an additional $30,000. It's the public restroom, sorry, not the staff restroom. It was the need for the public restroom, and Mr. Peterson's recommendation was that staff and public can use the same facilities. Staff has brought up that they would prefer not to use the same facilities as the general public, so the general consensus from the meeting was to continue with building this design. The other one didn't include the lobby. But those are the main differences.
So it says design as recommended by subcommittee. Is that accurate or not? Like, I'm getting mixed.
No,
I'm getting mixed too.
That is accurate.
No, I don't think. Well, that's what came out of the subcommittee. As one member of the subcommittee, I can assure you, I'm not sitting here saying I'm all for this design, just add the lobby and the changes they made and we're good with it. Quite frankly, like I said, the process to allow a qualified engineer architect to come in and say, how can we better it, how can we improve it, the architect, while saying he was willing to listen, we just didn't really even have the dialogue. I mean, basically, this design, as set set forth by staff we're being told this is the design. And I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with the fact that we have what is listed as a $4.3 million in the renovations to Building A and Building C, and yet we're looking at Phase 1 being 7.979 with additional costs approaching 9 to 10 million. Again, I just don't think we are doing enough to spend the residents' money wisely. And that's why I'm against going forward with this plan as laid out. And I'm also of the mindset that, we should ratchet those numbers down, tighten it up as best we can, and then also give the voters a chance to say, yeah, I'm buying in on it. And I think the city can promote it. And if it makes sense to the voters, because we've got to have a good place for the city staff to work, and we've got to have good public works, but at the same time, we're answerable to the residents to spend the taxpayers' money wisely. So for those reasons, I just can't go along and say, reaffirm council direction to design the entire city campus project as it sits.
So breaking down the 4.3, which I think is a combination of Building A renovation and Building C renovation, those prices don't appear to be too different from the estimates given in the December 3rd packet. What we're seeing here is site improvements and a basketball pavilion, and then demo, which is less than $40,000. And then the addition of the lobby extension, right? So I just want to, adding that, and especially the 1.6 for site improvements and basketball pavilion is where we're going from 4.3 to 7.1.
So just to be clear, though, the basketball pavilion there is struck out, so the basketball pavilion is not a part of this information on page 215 that lays out how we get to that 7.9 million, which is also what we talked about in the subcommittee meeting last Monday as well. But it does include, as you mentioned, all of the other things that are listed here with the numbers.
And I also want to bring up, this was another matter that was discussed briefly within the committee meeting, and that was the fact that this is being set forth with a construction manager at risk program as compared to a design build. And again, according to Mr. Peterson, whose expertise was certainly greater than everyone else in that room, he felt like if we went with a design-build approach, as we do with a lot of other projects, that we could potentially save in the range of $1 million, I believe. And, that's real money to the residents of Jersey Village. And I feel like it's not that I don't want to build the administration building or the public works building, it's just that I want to spend the residents' money wisely.
Okay, James, you were at the meeting too? Do you have any other, I'm assuming Michelle was also at the meeting? I'm just trying to understand, okay. It doesn't sound like consensus.
No, it doesn't. This literally is what it says. It says, following discussion, the subcommittee reached agreement that including the lobby in Phase 1 represents the preferred phasing approach. The subcommittee is recommending the City Council approve this modification. And then it goes into the numbers. But it sounds like that's not what happened, or you changed, or someone changed. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I can assure you I didn't change. It's a matter of voices being heard. And suffice it to say that I certainly feel like for myself and Mr. Peterson, there was zero consideration, zero collaboration. The whole idea of having a working group was set forth. We are going to sit down with the architect. They're going to take another shot based on the comments at that December 3rd meeting, and then we're going to see how we could improve. And basically it came in, here's what we've done, and oh, by the way, we realized that we won't have a lobby, so we need to add a lobby, and we need to add a public restroom. And so all of these changes were made, but there was no discussion, and ultimately the argument is, well, it's not going to reduce the cost by changing these things, so just leave them as is. But again, I am just unconvinced that we cannot build a quality building, these two buildings, renovate, remodel, for a lesser price, and I think we just need to work at it, but that working committee was not working.
There was significant discussion. We were there for about 2 hours. More than 1 hour of the conversation was about moving rooms from other buildings into this building. It was not about this building.
But did that, sorry, go ahead.
The consensus, as you read it there, is exactly the way I felt walking out of that meeting. There was a consensus that we would move forward with option B. It was discussed and outlined at the end of the meeting. It was discussed at the end of the meeting. Everybody's good with this. This is what we're going to move forward with. As I mentioned, the conversation around the design of this building, there was some talk of changing office sizes and whatnot. There was also discussion about the continued design would continue to increase design costs, and the amount saved was not necessarily there. You could shrink these offices down to a size of, there's a difference between building a building new and building a renovation. That was, we as a group have gone over that discussion. It was gone over again. This is the option that we went forward with. Now, council as a whole has the authority to go back and say they want to go with option 1 and not build the lobby. You could decide to do that today. That working group doesn't have any authority.
Did city staff weigh in on this? Because I understand, and I hear a lot about Mr. Peterson. I understand his qualifications, but I also think we shouldn't discount city staff for their role in this, and the fact that they'll be hanging out here permanently. I think their input is also important. Was there any input there?
So staff is very comfortable with this layout. We've got some cubicles there, we've got some offices there. I think we've said it before, some of these offices are bigger than what we would build if we were to build a brand new building, but we're working with the space that we have. We think this is a good approach. We think this is going to last for us for what we need for the foreseeable future.
For the benefit of everybody here, since I don't think option 1 is on here, option 1 included a renovation. You would build without the lobby, and then when you went to phase 2, you would have to renovate building A again.
Was that in your committee discussion? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So the committee had 2 options: the ability to make changes, go back and forth. The majority was about the EOCs and conference rooms in the other buildings. Coming back to this building, the majority of discussion was around this bathroom, and then whether or not to do the lobby, because if we didn't do the lobby, this front area would have to be reconfigured, and that means that when you move to phase 2, you would have to renovate this building again. And the committee decided that it was made more sense to build this lobby now and finish this building so that the rest of the project can move on without having to come back and fix things here.
And would that be same price or more expensive to renovate and add the lobby later, I'm guessing?
I do not remember the numbers. Austin could probably speak to that. There was a nominal difference. First build and renovate.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact dollars off the top of my head, but there was an additional cost to renovate this building again and then renovate it back. And that's why the committee, as a whole, if I recall correctly, said that doing the lobby now was in the best interest.
For the sake of information, it was more expensive to go with this design. The difference between the two, in my opinion, was not enough, so that's why I went with this design. and Councilmember Martin also agreed, and these two gentlemen also agreed it made more sense to do the lobby now.
That's fine. If we're going to add it, though, can you enlighten me on what would go on in the lobby? I assume there's a receptionist desk, there's chairs. Is that where the public restroom would be as well?
So the public restroom would be right off the lobby. You would have your permit clerk, your court clerks, and your receptionist right there. With phase 2, the larger public restrooms, the meeting room, and the council chambers, court chambers would be on the other side of that lobby.
I don't think it makes sense to go with remodeling something that was already remodeled and then going back, which sounds like the committee agreed with that much, right? And then there was some discussion about which restroom, like a restroom?
There was a discussion about whether or not to add that public restroom versus reconfiguring the hallways so that the public and staff use the same bathroom. The same people who attend court involuntarily attend and use these same bathrooms. So staff was making the comment that they would prefer to have a separate bathroom. And the public bathroom was placed in a way that you're only going to be digging about an extra 5 feet of underground in the building to get that bathroom added.
I don't think that's a problem. I would not want to use that restroom either. I mean, if you want that needs to be separate. So it sounds like the committee doesn't disagree on that, or on doing it, like not doing the remodel. Sounds like what y'all disagree with is the actual design situation. Is that it sounds more to me like this isn't the problem. The problem is you felt like you guys didn't actually get to sit down and talk about a completely different plan. But I will say, never in my mind did I ever imagine y'all sitting down and starting over with a blank slate. Like that to me was never the goal.
No. Improving the design to be more efficient. And that's the problem here is we're just stuck with the idea that this is the way that the city staff wants the administrative building to be. We understand a reason for having the lobby and having that additional expense, and considering the fact that reconfiguring the area, pushing back the public-facing desk, creating lobby area would be. We understand that that's an impediment, and that by adding the lobby, that if the city goes to phase 2, that lobby would be functional for phase 2 as well. So we were good with that as a consensus goes. I'm just telling you that as a committee member, I felt like it was not a great use of time, because what I anticipated the committee would be doing in terms of improving the design with the based on the expertise of Mr. Peterson's contributions, and I just felt like we just didn't even get there.
Does anybody have any further comments or a motion?
I was just trying to understand I guess I wasn't at the meeting. I purposely didn't want to be on the subcommittee for a lot of reasons, and I thought that inclusion of Mr. Peterson, being the expert that he was, could offer some ideas. In fact, that's what the meeting minutes that we approved tonight suggested, that the subcommittee would meet, and that the designer would come back the architects would come back based on the comments from December 3rd that we had advised, and then they would present those to the subcommittee, and Mr. Peterson would also offer ideas. So if I'm mischaracterizing what we had authorized in December, I don't know.
I have a question. This meeting occurred. Unfortunately, Councilmember Martin was unable to attend tonight, and she sent me some comments, but that was before the meeting in a personal text. I don't want to speak for her. Is there any issue? Cannot these three, maybe not before this vote, but later on, they can call Michelle, ask how she feels the meeting went, get feedback.
This meeting or the advisory?
The advisory meeting.
I wish I could just have a finger permanently on this. They could, as long as there wasn't any discussion related to the agenda item. In other words,
future action.
I think
future intent.
Right. I don't think it can relate to that. I think it must. It just plainly has to be what exactly what happened, what was said, done, end. It can't be any future action. It can't be any. I mean, and it's. And I'm sorry, I'm reading the. Yeah, as long as it's stuck to what happened at that meeting, then I think it's fine. But it can't be. In other words, when council members make that call, they need to be very deliberate about it being purely factual as what happened. And it shouldn't involve any discussion about what should happen in the future, it's not a brainstorming session. It's just a purely factual question.
I mean, I just want to clarify, we're being asked tonight to give direction on ratifying the agreement to do a phased approach. That is correct, right?
It can be discussed options and put this forward. And that's why I said it earlier. If y'all want to change it, go back to phase one. If you want to kick this back, you can do that. You have all kinds of options. Austin, go ahead.
Yeah, just so we're out there what the resolution here tonight does. Section 1, the council ratifies the phasing approach for the city campus project to include the lobby as part of phase 1 together with city administration and the public works. Reaffirms that this next part is the council reaffirms phase 2 of the city campus project, including the council and courts chambers, meeting rooms, and recreation center with community classrooms will be addressed at a later date, subject to future council consideration. And then section 3, council affirms the direction that the city campus project be designed in its entirety as a single coordinated design effort in order to obtain the comprehensive pricing for the full project, while proceeding with construction in phases as previously directed. And then city managers authorized to proceed with the design consistent with that direction, take all the necessary actions to implement this phasing and design approach on behalf of the city. So those are the three things that this resolution does. Council can choose to pull one or more than one of those pieces out of it, but that's what the resolution as presented would say, or says.
Okay, but I thought we already approved to get, comprehensive design, not comprehensive pricing. Sorry, just clarifying my own.
I hate to do this, but I'm going to pull back. I'm going to 180. I actually think it's too tight a line to walk in terms of what happened at that meeting. The reason being because it effectively now you get into the advisory, rubber stamping. And clearly that's not happening here because rubber stamping happens with no discussion. And how long have we been talking about it? So it's not really an issue here, but with the idea being that how many members of council served on the advisory committee?
2 council members and the mayor.
So then now my concern is less about the moving forward quorum is now are you creating a quorum related to the prior meeting, and it's just one of those issues it's just easier not to have to address. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay.
With respect to some of the issues that you were discussing or that you're mentioning, Simon, what were the recommendations that Mr. Peterson brought forward to address some of the concerns that you have?
Well, he had discussed a couple of things, including the size of offices, location of offices, the fact that essentially, except for the structural columns, you're working with a blank palette, so you weren't necessarily reusing existing dividing walls. And one of the things that we've said from the get-go on this project is, in the business world, these offices are significantly larger than most businesses the way they run, and the fact that so many, not department heads need to have their own offices. I don't deny that for a moment, but not every first and second line worker needs their own office. A lot of them can work in a bullpen, in a pit, in a cubicle, etc. And so I think that there's, we talked, for example, there about the Emergency Operations Center and where it would be or where it is and when it's needed and how often it would be needed, etc. And, there was a notion, well, could we reconfigure this so that it would potentially provide for that EOS? And could that be done? Because under those circumstances, do we have all of city staff? Are they there during a hurricane event, during a freeze event? Well, some of them are there, obviously, but not all of them are there. So that was the general gist of what we were trying to get at, is how we could improve the design of the administration to potentially defer the need to jump right into, after completing these two buildings, to jump into those other buildings, because it's all dependent on sales tax revenue, property tax revenue, and or the city's ability. And it's all about spending money more wisely. If you can office 40 people where you currently have a design for offices for 30 people, and it's still functional and it's in line with current industry standards, then I think we owe it to the residents to do that, to get the most value out of the dollars we're spending. And a large part of that is, I think we have to remember that we are a city of 8,000 residents, 2,200 single-family homes. We have an extraordinary benefit by having, the fire and police and EMS that we have, but there's an attendant expense with that. And we don't have a just super high level of sales tax revenue. So we have to be careful. You can't just say, well, I want the city to be this, and, let's have this city hall that has all these amenities, if we just can't afford to do it yet. And that's my concern.
With the suggestions on size of the offices, the location of the offices, with those suggestions, did the suggested improvements provide a cost savings?
There was, I think the general statement from the architect is, we can change it. And I'm not sure, Austin, maybe you can comment on this. If this is a percentage of the construction cost, if they're being paid 7% of the proposed construction cost, it seems to me that if we go back to them and say, okay, well, we need to move to smaller offices, or we need to move to a bullpen or something like that, there shouldn't be an increased cost. I mean, if it's truly, if their fee is based on a percentage of the construction cost, if there's a modification to where we're going, then there shouldn't be an additional fee.
So we did get pricing from Brookstone. Like, if we took 400 square feet of office space and turned those all into cubicles, they said we could save maybe $8,000 to $10,000. $8,000 to $10,000. If we shrink offices, you're going to have an increased hallway space or something. You're not going to eliminate windows and from the outside. You're not going to eliminate walls or doors or any of the higher costs. That's also things the architect talked about. So just shrinking the offices alone, you're not going to see a lot of the cost savings there. We also talked about the EOC and for the council chambers area, But it's not just the EOC. I think that's something we try to stress repeatedly during that council or during that subcommittee meeting. That's also the executive session room for city council. That's where the judges kind of review videos and stuff during cases. That's where the juries deliberate. It's more than just an EOC. It's a wide variety of uses, just like a lot of these rooms are. So while you might see a label on there of the EOC, you can't just focus on the EOC and that being the only use in that room.
Echo a lot of the same. What I found was reconfiguring this building did not make a whole lot of sense, and this was never intended to be a complete redesign of the space. Savings in converting was very small. One of the things I brought up too is moving some of those conference rooms, especially moving EOC into this building. During disaster, this space probably will be used. This is where I sleep during EOC activations, my office. And that is one of the only ways that you get away from the incident and take mental health break and get a chance to not be directly involved in the incident. And so there has to be that safe space for you to go to, and that's another reason I would not put that in this space. The majority of the discussion was on the overall, and we weren't there for the overall. We're there for this building.
I'm just torn because I was under the impression that there was sort of a consensus, if you will, and you're telling me there wouldn't be, by shrinking offices and that kind of thing, there isn't really a whole lot of cost savings, although I'll take 10,000. That's fine.
There was a consensus between the concept 1 and the concept 2. There was no consensus on the EOC and the overall project. Absolutely.
So it sounds like to me this is more of a disagreement with city campus existing in general versus the phase 1 versus phase 2 or whatever that specific thing.
The building design, yes.
Because I keep hearing, because it even keeps sounding like it was still the conversation, even though we've already talked about design stuff, that still keeps being brought up. So that sounds to me that this is not necessarily about this specifically as it is the project as a whole. Like that because I get like I don't think you, Councilman Hughes, I don't think you care for the project at all, like the whole city campus. I do think you agree that we need a new city hall, but I don't think you're a fan of the city campus, and I understand that. I guess what I just don't understand, it sounds like y'all are stating there was a consensus and there wasn't, but consensus doesn't mean unanimous either. So I'm just trying to understand, like, what's the big concern here?
Yeah, I think the only thing that there was a consensus on was that, there was an argument that they needed to have a separate public restroom as compared to the restroom for staff, that the incremental cost of having that separate public restroom was nominal to the tune of $30,000. Those arguments, okay, that makes sense. We can get along with that. And then there was the question about, well, they could, if they don't add the lobby on, they could reverse the windows around and have people come in, but that would mean configuring it once before you move into phase 2, and then reconfiguring it to allow for the lobby a second time because those windows face the lobby area. And based on that conversation, there was a consensus that it made more sense to add the lobby on at a cost of $600,000 than to configure it once and then have to reconfigure that west end of the administration building. I would characterize that in the meeting that was the consensus.
Just to talk about the lobby real quick, because that's part of this. If we don't spend that $600,000 now, we're going to have to spend it later. Is that right? Effectively for a lobby?
Correct, yes.
And if we don't do it now, there was at least $150,000 in rent reconstruction I think it was more than that. I'm putting my number real low to be safe. I'm going to look it up, but.
And if there isn't a lobby, people have to stand outside, correct? Like covered?
No, we would be pushing everything, the lobby back in, and so it would be a whole lot of remodel.
Okay,
On the phase 2 side, to keep people inside. But you'd essentially wipe out that top purple office there and put a door up there on the wall where it says court admin, and kind of bring people in that way during construction of phase 2. So it'd be a decently extensive remodel in order to allow phase 2 to happen, and then a remodel again once phase 2, I mean, it's part of the.
That doesn't make sense to me at all. So I do think then this would be the right answer as far as that. And it sounds like there was a consensus with that conversation.
So with respect to the revolution, which could occur, but the resolution for section 1, adding the lobby as part of phase 1, I'm for that. Reaffirming that phase 2 will be addressed at a later date. Yes, that's why we have phases. But section 3 is reaffirming that the direction is that we continue as a single design, coordinated effort in that direction. And I've stated before at the first agenda item that I'm for that. So I have no problem with the resolution as is.
Yeah, that's why I kept asking, like, what exactly are we voting on? Because the more I read this, I don't think there's anything in here to disagree with, in my opinion. I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2026-9.
I will second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Mayor votes in favor. Motion passes. Resolution 2026-9. Moving on to F9, discuss formalizing the process for resident expert third-party advisors and involvement in city projects. Councilmember Drew Wasson.
Yeah, I'm scrolling down to the remarks. 1 second. It gets really tiny when you have a long sheet in the agenda. This is about including either residents or third-party advisors in city projects. I know that in December we included Mr. Peterson. This, just to be clear, this is not a referendum on him or his actions, and I think his expertise has been well documented, and I appreciate you participating in the process. And so this is not directed at you or any individuals that volunteer and spend their time trying to make this a better community. So what this is I think going forward, if we're going to do something like that, or something, or include advisors, we need more parameters around said issue. We in the past 2 months, 2 meetings, we've approved nearly $7.7 million in project costs, or that will become project costs of about $7.8 million. And there were some projects in which staff included advisory services, and then there were some that we didn't, but we didn't change any of that. So I think if we go ahead and we, I guess what I'm trying to get to is that it worries me for us as council, and that if we make changes to the way we're doing business on an ad hoc basis and we're not consistent in how we do it, it could trouble, one, confidence in staff, and also in perception of vendors that work with us. So I came up with kind of ideas that we could talk about like whether we want to formalize an expert advisory committee We have quite a few residents in the neighborhood that are experts in their field. Whether we make a designated budget for third-party advisors, I think in some cases we do that and leave it to staff's expertise on when those are necessary. We can currently do an ad hoc approach, or we just kind of decide we don't do anything formal and we just reaffirm the trust in staff that and our paid consultants that we're not going to necessarily have an ad hoc basis again. I think we should encourage our staff to reach out to expertise when they're formulating plans and ideas. The whole point of this is to have a discussion on how we can do things better and more intentionally and more forward thinking and, quite frankly, more consistently.
I think the opportunities of when and how to use resident experts are varied. I don't think it's a good use of anyone's time to create a bullpen or try to maintain, a list of people who will be available. It's a commitment. My inclination is it may be something that's not needed for some period of time, and then there may be a period of time where there are 2 or 3 projects where a resident expert's opinions would be helpful. So, my perspective would be that we just do it on an ad hoc basis. Because really that work group is really just council delegating down, saying, y'all hash it out and come back to us and see if you can help us make a decision.
Another question for that is, at what point in the process, though, should we start that? I think that there's something to be said of getting someone involved at the beginning of a project or a design rather than in the middle of it where, with the pool, for example. We have several people that are collegiate swimmers, for example, and we have not necessarily asked for their specific feedback. We did ask for community feedback, and so on a number of projects we do that. But for a lot of these infrastructure projects, we got expertise. Well, we hire out for the expertise. I guess that's the question. So be interested in feedback from Councilmember Rossi and McCray.
Personally, I think you have city staff for a reason. We pay them. We also have paid consultants that are experts in their fields for whatever that is. I think it's important that we recognize that we hire good people here in Jersey Village. We talk all the time about the amazing benefits and things that we offer, and I think we should give them the benefit of the doubt and give them the opportunity to do their jobs without constantly questioning whether or not council or anybody else is going to feel like they need to call somebody else in from the outside to question what they're doing. I wouldn't want to work like that. I think that would make it hard to do my job. My concern with the ad hoc approach, or as it's listed here, the number 3, is that allows, to me, that allows a council person or council in general to decide, I don't know if I like this. I don't want to have to come out and say it myself, or I don't know, and I'd like to maybe not make a decision, so let me pull someone in to help make a decision, or make it seem like I'm giving information, or that I'm considering this. I just think it gets I think the waters get muddied when we do that. I think we pay consultants for a reason. We should do that. I also think, if we don't trust our staff to do their jobs, then we need to get different staff. To me, that would be my 2 cents.
Well, the 20 20,000 foot above view of all this, at least what I'm seeing, or at least what my gut keeps going to, is that there isn't trust. That's what I'm seeing, or at least I feel. I don't know if it's up here on the dais or if it's in the community, but that is what I keep feeling in my gut, so I'm going to go with that. So there could be maybe some work on that somewhere. I'm not an expert on how to handle that. I can work on that myself. I thought when we were elected, that was the community saying, hey, we trust that you'll make the right decisions for us on our behalf, for our city. And so that was my interpretation of being, elected. So when I look at your options, I'm not mad at option 2, which was to budget for a third-party advisor. The only problem with that is that it will cost money to do that. The next option would be creating a formal expert advisory. So we have, and I don't know what that would look like, but we do have committees who are, we have different committees in the city. So this would be maybe kind of like that. And if somebody wants to volunteer their time, and they can, and if they don't want to anymore, then they don't have to. There was one concern you brought up, which is a real concern when it comes to public bidding projects and municipal projects, and I've seen some of this, is when somebody says, I don't want to put a bid in for that project because of who's bidding or who's putting the bid out. Which is why the ad hoc approach is not something I'm leaning towards, because that would be a big one. But I think overall, it's the trust. I don't know how we build that back as a city, but I really think I think you hit the nail on the head, and that's what it is.
Yeah, my favor would be that we actually do what I've kind of encouraged, staff to do as council members. We reach out to experts that we know, whether be they're residents. I mean, several of us are experts in areas just through our professional lives, and Councilmember Rossi example knows a lot about MUDs and public utilities, and I think we've relied a lot on you for that. But pre-meetings and pre-items and in studying this, we may make a phone call or an email or something like that, and get ideas and generate from that, and that would probably be the area I would like to go to. I think once we get to a certain point in a project, if we start changing things to a certain extent, we lose trust of staff and then maybe of the residents. I encourage all residents, if you have ideas, thoughts, or questions, to reach out to us, or feedback for that matter.
Well, and they do. Some of them do, right? I mean, that's how this kind of came to play. So my goal, and Tommy, you might appreciate this. My goal, number one goal, is to protect the city legally. So whatever approach that is going to be my first choice, is how to protect this city legally. And my next goal would be to avoid future disputes, challenges in bidding and that kind of thing. So the other part of my answer would be that I would lean quite a bit on the legal advice as well. I'm sure some people are not.
Well, and I'm not sure. Frankly, it's as much a legal answer as it is a the way I frequently see things go sideways answer. Does that make sense? I have, legally speaking, you can not create advisory committees for just about almost any reason. Practically speaking, you're already hiring experts for at least the actual execution phases of the project. So needing to bring in experts to monitor the experts, it's one of those like, does the subcommittee solve a problem? And I'm not talking about the subcommittee for any specific issue that was on like the campus project. I'm just talking about, it's kind of like you don't fix a problem by doing a study. You don't fix a problem by creating a subcommittee. You just create a subcommittee to get different input from different folks. You can put whoever you want on it. In terms of the actual expert that you hire to do certain things, that expert has to meet certain requirements depending on what the thing is. And then how that advisory committee plays with the role of that. For instance, at that prior project, CMAR, I just tell you, having an advisory committee on the front end of a project is frankly the only place I think it makes any sense whatsoever. And when I say front end, I mean as front end as you're imagining, like just the conceptual design. But having an advisory committee anywhere in the weeds during the design or the implementation phase gets real sticky, because now you've got, essentially it becomes a how many bosses do I have type of issue. I've got direction from committees, direction from subcommittees, direction from council, direction from staff, and then of course in a CMAR relationship you obviously have the engineer managing the project, assuming the risk for the project, and of course they want to defer to everything. So even project to project, same project, different delivery method may have a different result. It's not to say that I don't value any local experts. I'm saying that there's just a million different issues that can come up, and it's hard to say this is the way we should use that or this is the way we should not use that. I do know that when you hire independent experts that aren't residences, you know for a fact that they're not maybe motivated by certain things. Like maybe a resident expert may have certain motivations related to, and I'm not saying that's anything remotely involved here. I'm just saying this is where I've seen things blow up, is because someone may be, motivated by something else, and they may also be an expert and completely qualified to judge it, but whereas, you can't rely solely on that expertise because you don't know how much of it's being polluted by that other motivation. Does that make any sense? You don't have that objectiveness that quite frankly that you pay for with the consultant. So to some degree, I'm like, I don't know how much you really truly need experts to monitor your experts. That said, you should absolutely value any expert, any advice in the community should be valued, just period. But it can, without going into every issue where it can go sideways, I think we can see just from the discussion on what did the subcommittee agree on tonight, that kind of becomes the issue. So how do you construct the subcommittees? The subcommittee conducted like a Parks Committee. Does the Parks Committee follow the Open Meetings Act? If they do, are we going to do the subcommittee like that? That would be the only way to ensure that you know what was in the minutes. But even then, it kind of gets to like if it's still, it's that balance of how much process is required to fix the thing that's fixed without rendering the total process just completely unmanageable, because now you've got extra meetings compounded with extra meetings. You've got, who's really driving the train?
I'll move on. I agree. Very early in the process, they have some value. The issue I see with item 1 and really item 2 is, with item 1, you're going to have a very hard time finding an expert that does not also add a layer of bias and complication that I don't think will be productive to the process. Item 2 is very similar. I've worked on some projects where they have hired a consultant or monitoring company to come in and do inspections and critique the work of the builder, and 9 times out of 10, they are not worth their money spent. You spend a very high upfront fee, and they barely recover if there's argument that they don't actually recover that amount of money. In fact, I think the right move is no formalization.
Yeah, I would, after what city attorney had suggested, I think if for future projects, should we want to do that, at least until my lame deck session is over, I recommend that we. Yeah, that's true. Not until May 2nd, but thank you. But I'd recommend that we get it early on as we can, like at the ideation stage, and maybe that could work better if we feel that there's a need, we being council. So there was no decisions to be made. I think it was just a discussion I thought we should have following some ways we did some things in December.
Does anybody have any closing arguments on that item?
I appreciate the discussion, and I'm glad that we could at least discuss it. I don't know if we're all on the same page on everything, but I appreciate, Tommy, your input for sure. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item G, Mayor and Council comments. And we'll start with Councilmember Hughes.
Just thank everybody who came out to view the City Council meeting here in person or who watched at home and participated. Do go to the city's website. Do look into the projects that the city is working on, the agendas and the items that we're voting on. They all affect you, and we're trying to run a city and make the best decisions for residents, and there's a lot of trade-offs there because there's expenses associated with a lot of things that people want, and it's very, very important that residents not just observe and express to themselves that they may be frustrated, but rather they need to communicate to the people up here who represent you, the mayor, what your feelings are, what your opinions are, so that we're assisted in making decisions using our best judgment, but also giving serious consideration to the opinions of the residents.
Councilmember Watson?
I second all that, Councilmember Hughes. Thank you. And I will add to that, there's a lot of events going on in the city in February this weekend. One is at Jersey Meadows Golf Club. They will have a golf cart parade, family-friendly cornhole event, crawfish boil, a lot of other things. So check it out. There should be flyers. I don't know if they're on Jersey Meadows website, but you can find it, I think, on Facebook and other places at the golf course. And a lot of other events. I think a couple of weeks there's a father-daughter dance and other things. So keep in touch with city events, and I look forward to seeing you guys in March.
Councilmember Rossi?
I agree with both of you, mentioning email your representatives, even if whether you like or dislike or whatever your opinions are, because it is very important that we hear from all of you guys. I wanted to congratulate somebody on staff who is not here tonight, Chief Jake Daly. Him and his wife had a baby January 26th, and so I just wanted to congratulate him and his wife. There's also the first annual Back the Blue Golf Tournament, March 26th at Jersey Meadow, and all net proceeds from the event will benefit the Texas Police Chiefs Association Foundation. I'm sure I'm missing some other, you mentioned some other events that are going on, Mardi Gras and all that, the parade, the cornhole, yeah. So the farmers market, by the way, thank you for mentioning that. That was something I forgot to put on my list. The farmers market is blowing up, and so I'm really excited to see, it's very exciting to see people come out. I'm really happy to see that, and so thanks for tossing that one my way. I appreciate that. And thank you to the staff for putting everything together for us. Appreciate that.
Councilwoman McCray.
I'm actually going to use my time to speak about an issue that I consider a matter of public safety, which can be covered under citizen or council comments. All right, so starting on January 2nd, for some ungodly reason, TxDOT changed the light cycle going east on Philippine out of Jersey Village under the Beltway. Since then, I have submitted approximately 14 submissions on the Report and Issue website. I have spoke with Austin about this as well. I'm personally waiting for a restraining order from TxDOT at this point. So what they did is, if you were coming out of Jersey Village and you go under the Beltway, if you need to turn left, for instance, to take your child to middle school, which a large number of people in this neighborhood do in the mornings, the protected left-hand light, the green arrow, is gone. It has been there for years. The green arrow is no longer there. So when you go in the morning, traffic is coming from the other direction, and anybody wanting to turn left never gets an opportunity. I once patiently waited through 4 light cycles before everyone in front of me started running the light. That is running the light, taking a left-hand turn with oncoming traffic coming from the Beltway. That is people driving over 60 miles an hour, at least, coming in, and people are going from a dead stop just trying to merge on a totally illegal left-hand turn. It is a death waiting to happen. TxDOT clearly does not care because of all the things I've done. So I'm asking people, what I'm asking is people to go onto the TxDOT website and to fill out the Report and Issue. It is eastbound out Philippine under the Beltway. Between the hours of 6 a.m. and 7 a.m., there is no left-handed protected left arrow, and it is a disaster. So I'm waiting for somebody's going to hit a bus is what's going to happen, and it's just going to be bad. So I would appreciate anyone and everyone's support on this, because I've waited patiently. I've gone through the proper channels. I don't know what the next step is, but I'd like to take it. So feel free to email me if you want more information on that. Also, have a nice day.
I love the passion. I sit at that light every day and hadn't contacted TxDOT, so I will go do that for you.
Well, and it's weird because around 7 a.m. the arrow starts, but all the bus traffic for the high school is before that, and so these buses are coming from the other way, and people are playing chicken in between buses on a red light. Like it is. Yeah, it was perfectly fine for years before that. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to change.
I will second Councilmember Hughes. If anything, his comments really apply to the people that don't observe and don't comment. So please find someone around you. All of you attend and comment. Please find somebody, an interest that piques them, and prompt them to give some feedback. This Saturday is Valentine's Day. I hope you have plans before you go on your date. The Harris County Public Probate Administrator's Office contacted me, asked if I could help host an event. They are doing a tour around the county, and they're providing a family home workshop that talks about actions and things you can do to take action now to better prepare your family should you pass, and you need to register for the event. You can contact me or go to the Public Probate Administrator's Office. The following day is Sunday, which is the Jersey Village Market that has had a significant makeover. Karen Fitzgerald and Sonia Tiarini have stepped up as volunteers and have done a lot alongside the city staff to renovate the market. There's been a massive uptick in attendance and better vendors. A lot of the vendors that you previously saw have come back. But what's most important about that is that you go tell somebody outside of Jersey Village. People outside of Jersey Village need to know that the farmers market has changed. The only way to support that event in the long term as people from outside of the city coming to visit. Later that day, the Jersey Meadows Golf Club Mardi Gras event. They're doing a parade this year. You should absolutely go check it out, followed by crawfish, so I will definitely find a way to be there, and a cornhole tournament. So everybody should come out. That is it for my comments, and we're going to adjourn at 9:39.